Culturally, stereotypical challenges of gendered labor exist where women's contribution at the field is often either dismissed or not compensated evenly. Welcome to another Q&A session with the Logical Indian. Today we have Director of Sustainability, Walmart Foundation, Sherry Lee Singh. Sherry, very warm welcome to the Logical Indian.
Thank you. Good to be with you this morning.
The recent farm bills passed by the government is being unanimously rejected by the farmers. The inhibition is mostly about the monopoly of aggregators diluting their bargaining power in the market. So, in what ways brands like Walmart is stepping in as, part of their commitment to Indian farmers?
Okay, thank you. The Walmart Foundation has had a long-term engagement on supporting smallholder producers around the world. And this, spans markets such as India, Mexico, and Central America. In India, going back all the way to 2018, we announced a $25 million 5-year commitment, really focused on small producers organized in farmer producer organizations, and really focused on strengthening their capacity, building out the sustainability of FPOs, really building out the livelihoods opportunities for smallholder farmers, including women smallholder farmers. And so this has been part of our core focus for a long time, just a central focus on really creating opportunity for the smallholder at the farm level.
Right. So, like you said, since 2018, Walmart Foundation has been working with 8 NGO partners on projects that aim to kind of benefit the farmers. So, can you slightly also elaborate on the progress,
Yep.
and the contribution that Walmart Foundation, has made since the launch of its initiatives in India?
So we have been building out the program since 2018, and we've been hard at work to find quality programs and to find quality organizations. Mix of organizations that are local, so really local nonprofits inside of India, as well as international nonprofits that have local registration and have a history of, over the long term, of direct service program implementation in India. And so it's been an exciting mix of organizations with strong relevance in the geographies that we focus on today. Last year in September 2020, we announced progress of meeting a $15 million outlay in terms of grants provided to 8 organizations. And then these 8 organizations in turn supporting programming for 140,000 smallholder farmers, 80,000 of those smallholder farmers being women producers, and then the majority of these farmers being organized in farmer producer organizations that are being capacitated to really take over the interventions by the nonprofit organizations and really to implement those for the long term. We are starting to do some reporting out from these programs, but I'll save that and start to share more about specific programs and what they're learning.
Sherry, so, could you talk about, also in what ways Walmart Foundation is helping farmer producer organizations like you were just mentioning in improving their access to markets?
Yes. So I'm sure you're familiar that there is a national commitment inside of India to really focus on developing our 10,000 strong FPOs. And our program really works in complement to this agenda, really looking at aggregation models for smallholder producers, looking at the opportunity that farmer producer organizations and farmer producer companies create, looking at the opportunity that farmer producer organizations and farmer producer companies create, and then looking at what sustainability for these organizations will look like for the long term. So looking at the operational structures. So are they inclusive? Are the membership drives open? Can women freely participate? Can women participate in the membership in a co-ed level with, at the household level? Are there standalone FPOs that are needed for women's direct management? So it's more exclusive inclusive to women? What are the opportunities for shared leadership and equity in leadership of FPOs? And then also, how do they fulfill their mandate from a compliance standpoint, right? So that's not necessarily easy to do in the startup, but once that is working, and so we will support programs that really help those FPOs to get off the ground, to help them with their business model. But once that is in place, how do they deliver a benefit to their smallholder farmer members? What makes them different in terms of their value add? And so this really comes down to what services can the FPOs provide to farmers at the field level? Can they provide crop advisory services? Can they offer opportunities to directly link farmers to markets? Can they help farmers to aggregate their produce? Can they provide transportation and logistical services? And more importantly, in the post-pandemic world, or in this world that's now shaped by the pandemic, can they connect them to digital services, to timely information, to transparency to information around their crop programs, around markets, around pricing, for example? And so really looking at how you layer these services into a well-structured FPO.
Culturally, stereotypical challenges of gendered labor exist where women's contribution at the field is often either dismissed or not compensated evenly. So this limits the decision making by the women and their exposure to the market. How do you think can such norms sort of be challenged to bring women back in agricultural leadership?
We know that smallholder farmers are really the backbone of Indian agriculture, really the core producers in Indian agriculture, and we know that women's roles in smallholder agriculture are quite significant. But we also know that the opportunities to benefit and participate, as you mentioned, across all facets of the supply chain are sometimes limited. We try to really understand through the program partners the cultural context. So really understanding if there are opportunities for co-ed, so joint household farmer producer organization structures, for example. Where's there an opportunity where women are naturally aggregating and collectivizing across a certain crop opportunity or a value addition opportunity? What are the starting points? Once you've discovered those starting points, then really starting with inclusivity to start to shift some of those norms, for example. So this is around norms around shared decision making on cropping programs at the farm level, looking at opportunities to really understand how we bring some of the cropping programs closer to the homestead, for example, looking at time-saving interventions. So if you're able to do digital delivery of extension, get quick advisories into women's hands, equip them with the resources to then take action against those advisories, is that an entry point that adds value and creates opportunity for women to participate? And then really breaking the norms around the end of the chain where sometimes women are particularly held back. So the decision making around buying, negotiating, for example, adding in new crop choices into the farm level. And that's where women's leadership in the FPO and in the FPO boards in particular can play a role, creating the right government structures, creating the right incentives so that decision making is really shared. So as that FPO builds its business model, as they look forward, women are included in that vision for the future state and what can be in terms of their participation. So the decision making around buying, negotiating, for example, adding in new crop choices into the farm level. And that's where women's leadership in the FPO and in the FPO boards in particular can play a role, creating the right government structures, creating the right incentives so that decision making is really shared. So as that FPO builds its business model, as they look forward, women are included in that vision for the future state and what can be in terms of their participation.
Talking about state intervention, how do you think in brands, with their considerable grants, sort of pool and work along with the government agencies to kind of bring about a sustainable improvement in the lives of the farmers, especially in countries like India?
Yeah, so we look at philanthropy as really being a complement to public sector and private sector programs that may be in operation. But we look at philanthropy addressing a specific barrier, gap, need, or learning opportunity. And so we've been very careful in really placing our philanthropy alongside programming in a way that is not duplicative, but really complementary. And so these investments, for example, around capacity development, once you've really developed that capacity of an FPO, they can link into private sector opportunities, they can link into public sector opportunities, for example, and that's a complement. When you look at digital delivery of advisory to the farm level, traditionally you'd rely on public advisors to go out to individual farms and deliver that advisory farm to farm. That means in that model, many farms may not be reached, for example. And so when you deliver complementary digital services, it's helping to extend the length and the reach of the public sector programming. It's also helping that programming to be more targeted. And so it adds information on crops that maybe weren't traditionally in the focus of the public sector, for example. And so you're adding in now some advisory that maybe is focused on higher value crops, for example, that is focused on small livestock close to the household. And so I see lots of opportunities for shared builds, complementary builds, but it does mean that you assess the landscape first and you find out what's the specific opportunity where the philanthropy can add value, not be duplicative, but unlock opportunity for the system to really flourish and operate more independently over time.
That is an extremely insightful thought, I have to say. So, Sherry, what are the future goals of Walmart Foundation in the Indian agricultural space?
So we're very much still in the part of implementing the commitment. We reached the $15 million milestone last September. We've got another 10 million to go in really advancing that commitment. And we're also really now focused on learning, an opportunity for surfacing learning. So that would be case studies, resources, tools, and related information that really connects in other actors who can build upon the work that's been started through the commitment. And so that's a key focus today. We've seeded some learning programs. So really looking at what does a successful FPO look like, for example, where are we in the landscape of really putting forward sustainable FPO models? What can we learn from our programs? What can we learn from adjacent programs that may be supported by other actors, be they in the private sector or the public sector, for example? And we're doing that learning through the Tata Cornell Institute for Agriculture and Nutrition, and they're standing up a FPO Center of Excellence pillar to really aggregate these learnings. So that's one pathway. And then looking forward, we're also investing in learning around what it means to really empower women in market linkage approaches. So as you take on collective aggregation, as you connect to more formal markets, what needs to be true for women to benefit from those systems over time? So that's our focus right now, a continued commitment to agriculture, a continued commitment to smallholders in the Indian landscape.
Right. So, post-pandemic world has, of course, sort of elevated the relevance of digital space. How can, digital transformation and sort of adopting technological innovations raise agricultural productivity?
It's a good question. One of our early investments was in an organization called Digital Green that had a long history of building out digital services, but really making them locally contextualized to local crops, to local dialects, for example, and so increasing the accessibility of ag extension knowledge. We saw an opportunity to support Digital Green to offer more integrated services. And so instead of developing always, its direct own content, which is great content to start with, how do they connect into other systems, whether information systems, other crop advisory systems that may be out there but are on different platforms? And so we invested in the farm stack model with Digital Green to really create more interoperability across these systems so farmers get more knowledge in a single entry point versus needing to download multiple multiples of apps, for example. And that's been exciting to see that grow and move forward. We've also found in the individual grant programs that many are working with the many innovative companies inside of India that are building out crop extension programs, for example, are building out real-time weather data information systems. And so it's an exciting time for digital right now in India. Our concern is really around equity and access. So is the information on a phone and on an application that the farmer actually can afford to use, has access to use, for example? That's the first question. The second question is their gender equity in that access to information. So are men and women both able to access and use that information? And then the third is efficiency. What is really going to scale over time? What can really sustain in the market over time? And so that's another question we sit with. But certainly lots of opportunities for digital in the moment right now.
Right. Thank you so much, Sherry. Before sort of like wrapping this up, is there anything you'd like to say to the Logical Indian community today?
What's exciting is the focus on sustainability. So looking at, environmental sustainability, but also social issue sustainability and the topic of livelihoods that we're talking about today. So taking a holistic view of the topic, giving voice to youth in agriculture and in sustainability topics, and really emphasizing really being a digitally distributed a publication, right? And so I really love how you show up on various social platforms, the youthfulness of your engagement on your platforms, and then the fact that there is strong engagement so that it's a two-way conversation as well is fantastic.